start recording at this point, so everyone knows. Okay. So thank you all so much for joining tonight. I'm very excited to be able to have this meeting and be able to discuss tonight's topic, where we're going to be focusing on East Bay Mud's plan for repair of the hillside near Moraga Creek and Canyon Bridge that was impacted by landslides in 2016 and 2017. This project is called the Moraga Creek Flood and Erosion Control Project. Tonight, we're going to be having some introductory comments. I'll go over who those speakers will be in just a second. After that, we'll be having the presentation. Please do hold your questions until the end. You can chat them into the chat box, but we will wait until the end to answer those questions, just because we might cover something within the presentation that you're asking. You'll also be able to ask by raising your hand, and I will unmute you at that time. Again, I will be keeping everybody on mute during the presentation. That's just so that we don't have any kind of background noise. Again, I will be making this presentation, the recording of it, available on the website. We'll also have a PDF of tonight's PowerPoint available on the website. We're going to try to end right at 7 p.m. tonight. We do want to make sure we get everybody's questions answered. If you have another question arise later on, I'll be providing my contact information, and you can always email me or reach out to me with that question. I can get you an answer. So tonight, we're going to have some opening remarks from the town of Moraga's mayor, Mike McClure. I would also like to recognize Sean Knapp, who is on the call tonight. He's the Director of Public Works and the Town Engineer for the town of Moraga. After that, we're going to be having a self-introduction and a couple of comments by East Bay Regional Park District's Director Dee Rosario, who I think I saw join. I also would like to recognize, I think I saw Jill Ray from Office of Candace Anderson on tonight. Hi, Jill. And I'm kind of just trying to peek to see if there's anybody else. We'll be going over who from East Bay Mud is working on this project as part of the presentation. But after Dee Rosario, we're going to be having opening remarks from our own East Bay Mud Director of Ward 3, Marguerite Young, who will open up the meeting and provide a little bit of background. So with that, I'm going to unmute Mayor McClure for some opening comments. Let's see here.
Okay, I think I'm all set. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Mike McClure, Mayor of Moraga, and a few remarks here. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight to learn about East Bay Municipal Utilities District's project in Moraga. The town has been working with East Bay Mud since the landslide in 2016 to develop a plan to stabilize the hillside and protect the new Canyon Road Bridge. The town made significant progress last year on the Canyon Road Bridge, and the second and final phase of the bridge construction project is scheduled to start next month. The town and East Bay Mud will continue our coordination of our efforts in the coming months to enable the hillside stabilization project to occur concurrent with the bridge construction project. We are excited that the end of the project will include reopening of the Lafayette Moraga Trail, thanks to East Bay Regional Park District. And a big thank you for all your patience. Updates on the Canyon Road Bridge construction project can be found on the town's website. And I'd also like to say a special thank you to Public Works Director Sean Knapp for all the hard work. He's the one that makes this work from the town's perspective. Thank you.
Catherine, you might be on mute.
Thank you. I was working on unmuting Dee Rosario. Apologies. So with that, I'm going to open it up to Dee Rosario from East Bay Regional Park District, who's going to say a couple of words and introduce himself.
Thank you very much. Very nice to be here. I'm Dee Rosario. I'm on the board of directors for the East Bay Regional Park District, and I represent Ward 2, which includes the Lafayette Moraga. And this is such great news that the slide repair is moving forward. And we understand that it's been very difficult for the community to not have this trail, but hopefully we'll all be working together and to get the slide repair and then quickly get the trail done and open as soon as possible. So I really appreciate everyone working together and getting to this point, and looking forward to reopening the Lafayette-Moraga Trail. And just as a small factoid, this year is the 45th anniversary for the Lafayette-Moraga Trail. So it'll be a great present, birthday present.
Fantastic, thank you. And with that, I'm going to open it up to Director Marguerite Young, who's going to be giving some opening comments.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Marguerite Young. I represent Ward 3 of East Bay Mud, which includes Orinda, Moraga, parts of Oakland, parts of Pinole, El Sobrante. And if you know your map in your head, you know that I represent a whole lot of our local watershed as a result of that. Just want to give a little bit of background on East Bay Mud for those of you that may not be familiar with us as an agency. We serve 1.4 million. It's probably actually a bigger number than that. That was I think the last census number. 1.4 million customers, and we also provide wastewater treatment service to about 740,000 customers on the west side of the hills. We are a public ratepayer funded agency. In 26, now this is something most of you probably do know. In 2016 and 2017, when we had our big rains, landslides occurred below Augusta Drive and adjacent to Moraga Creek in Moraga, and it affected many properties. In 2020, the affected property owners reached agreements to develop a coordinated solution that addresses slope movement in the area. Very glad that that's happened. This evening, we are here to really present our end of that project. We're really happy to be moving forward with repairs, hope to get a lot done quickly. And while we may not like having a drought, it does provide some advantages in projects like this. So we'll be discussing the erosion control project and answering questions about that. This has been and will continue to be a really collaborative effort, and want to thank Mayor McClure, Public Works Director Sean Knapp, Dee from the Park District and our Park District staff, as well as all of our folks that have been working on this, and FEMA for putting out a grant that enabled us to pay for a good chunk of this, and recognizing the importance of this area. So this is East Bay Mud, Town of Moraga, East Bay Regional Parks. We all explored the feasibility of repairing the slide area and restoring the creek. The retaining system will support the hillside below Augusta Drive and protect the integrity of the Town of Moraga's New Canyon Road Bridge, while providing space for East Bay Regional Parks to restore the trail in that area. We did get, as I mentioned, a grant from FEMA that East Bay Mud applied for $3 million, which is a big part of the total. I am now going to turn it over to our project manager, Sam Gambino, and he's going to present the details of the project.
Director Young, just 1 second. Sam, I just wanted to let folks know there was quite a few people who were in the waiting room that just trickled in. So I just wanted to give them a quick update. So Director Young just provided just some opening remarks, and now we're going to get into the actual presentation by Sam Gambino. Please stay on mute until the end of the presentation, and then we're having a question and answer session. You can use the chat function if you would like, but those questions will be answered afterward. This is also being recorded and will be available on the project website, www.ebmud.com/Moraga Creek. So thanks so much, and Sam, go ahead.
Okay, so everyone can hear me, correct? And you can see my title slide, hopefully?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so thank you for coming tonight. This is about the Moraga Creek Flood and Erosion Control Project. So you heard our opening remarks from our speakers, and I'm going to go over some of the details within a project overview. We'll talk about the schedule, and then we'll open it up for Q&A and talk about our next steps. So you heard from Director Young just now, thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge Clifford Chan, our General Manager, Jimmy Yoloye, our Director of Engineering and Construction, Elizabeth Bialik, our Manager of Engineering Services, Sean Tadaro, Senior Civil Engineer and Geotechnical Section Leader. I'm Sam Gambino. I'm an Assistant Engineer within the Geotechnical Section. And Catherine Horn, our Community Affairs Representative, is our MC tonight. So an overview of the project, here is where it is located. And hopefully you can see my mouse moving. It's at the southern end of Westchester, east of Augusta Drive. And the creek is shown here to the east. So I'm going to overlay a photo here, an aerial photo, just so you can see the boundaries of the project. And here is the creek with this dense tree coverage and the school for your reference. So I jumped to this slide momentarily there. This is a picture of what those earth movements that occurred in the winter of 2016 and 2017 looked like. Now this photo was taken in June of 2020. So our project is going to be to come in and restore the slope by constructing a terraced, two-tiered stitch pier and tieback earth retaining system. Then we'll regrade the slope back to its original topography, and we'll restore the East Bay Regional Trail to a temporary condition with a gravel pathway. And then as soon as our project is over, the Parks District will come in and finish off the path. Now, the next slide I'm going to show is a cross-section cut through the maximum extent of the slide right here. Okay. So here's that section. Here in this dark line, this is Augusta Drive up here, and this is the surface topography. The hillside is this dark line here. Here's the creek at the toe of the slope. And this line here is the slide plane where there was a rotational failure. The landslide slumped into the creek laterally and vertically. So our support system will be a stitch pier and tieback system. And it's called that because these vertical members are the stitch piers. They're like concrete columns that essentially stitch across the slide plane, pinning it right here. This is the lower terrace. Here's the upper terrace. Another stitch pier comes through here and stitches across the slide plane. It's also called a tieback system because there's these tensioned anchors, these red lines here, that tie the slope back. So we're also securing it across this interface here and securing it across this interface here to arrest that movement. So the next image I'm going to show is if you were standing in the creek looking back towards the slope, back up the hillside. So this is what it looks like in profile view. And this line here is, this gray line is the ground surface. It's the top of the slope. Now, if this was a normal retaining wall, like you're probably used to seeing, they often call those soldier pile walls. And they're called soldier piles because these vertical members look like toy soldiers standing in a row. But ours is buried. It's below the surface of the ground, okay? So we bury it, and that's why it's a stitch pier wall. And again, you can see it stitching across this dashed landslide plane. This is the landslide plane now looking at it from a different angle. And I'm going to zoom in here on the next slide to show you the tieback details, because these little squares here inside the red circle are those tiebacks. And if you can picture them going into the page, they're the anchors. So here's another depiction again in cross section of what that looks like. On the left, here's the ground slope again. Here is the stitch pier, concrete, and then it gets capped off with a cap beam, which is a beam that runs in and out of the page, as shown on this image here. And then over on the right is sort of an engineering depiction of what the structural details of that cap beam and stitch pier look like. So it's got vertical rebars. It's got a steel spiral, a rebar spiral here, drop down the center of the column. Here's the faceplate for the anchor, and then the anchorage itself pierces right through and goes back into the slope right here. So how do we build this thing? Going back to the original slide showing the access, we're right here. Now our main point of access will be at the southern end of Westchester. So this inset is rotated so that north is pointing to the left. So we're zoomed in on that dot in the picture on the left. And so here's Westchester. Currently, if you were to go to the site, there are some bollards, those vertical parking poles that you see, and then this is the grassy area that will become our contractor's staging area. And what we're showing here are some of our erosion control measures. There's going to be some hay bales and silt fencing and a gravel entryway with a gate here. So this is a shot of what that looks like now. These are those vertical parking bollards that I mentioned, those poles at the very end of Westchester. This pickup truck is parked at the southern end of Westchester in this photo. And right now I'm looking north and my back is against where we have the temporary gate with the chains that block off the former creek trail access. So the construction sequencing is a bit of a complex puzzle because it's a fairly tight site and we're going to build it in stages, and it's a 2-year or 2-season project. So again, this image here is oriented with north to the left. So just for your reference, here's Westchester Street. Here is the creek. Here is Canyon Road with the new bridge. And here's Augusta Drive. And you can see the homes along Augusta in the footprint here. So the terraced system consists of a lower wall here, which looks like a hockey stick, and then the upper wall. And each of these circles are those stitch piers or soldier piles, if you want to think of them that way. So in our first season, shown in purple, we're going to have the contractor come in and they'll start at this end next to the bridge, and they'll start building the lower wall or terrace, and they'll work their way back out. Now, the intent with doing that is to stabilize the lowest part of the slide. We want to cut it off at the pass, right at the toe, and arrest that movement first. And once we've done that, then it'll be easier for the contractor to come in with their heavy equipment and now work on the upper terrace here. So then they'll build this portion in the first season, and then they'll button up the site, winterize it, and move off the site for the winter. The next season, they'll come back in and they'll finish the remaining portion of the lower tier here, shown in blue, and then they'll finish the remaining portion of the upper tier. And then after that, they do the slope restoration and the final landscaping. So as part of this, in order for them to get in there and do the site, there are going to be some trees removed, a number of trees. And so this image shows the outline of the tree as a circle with an X through the trunk where it's going to be removed. And so these green ovals are showing the trees that'll be removed to facilitate construction. Some of the trees will be protected, particularly down here in this corner. And then when our project is done, we're going to put trees back. So this image is showing the various types of trees that will be put into the slope. This image is a good one because it shows the final configuration of the cap beam with the stitch piers below buried, and then the path itself is right here. So there are a number of environmental considerations to contend with. There are protected species in the area, such as raptors, whip snakes, raptors are birds, pond turtles, red-legged frogs, tiger salamanders. And we're going to have the contractor install exclusion fencing, and that's what this detail is showing here. And so what an exclusion fence is it's a barrier to allow the critters to exit the construction site through this porthole at their own free will, but then it prevents them from coming back in. So they'll be able to leave at their leisure and then hopefully stay out. But even if they don't, we're going to have biological monitoring during construction, and monitors are actual people. They're inspectors whose sole job is to look for these protected species and facilitate relocation of them should they still be found within our footprint. We're also going to protect the creek itself. So the contractor is going to take steps to minimize erosion of the stockpiled earthen materials and runoff along the native slope. So these temporary measures, you might remember from that first image I had of the staging area where I mentioned the fiber rolls, which are these coconut fiber logs that keep debris from flowing. Silt fences are those black fences you're probably used to seeing on construction sites that allow water to pass through but not sediment. Construction fencing is that orange plastic fencing to keep pedestrians out. The check dams are sandbags strategically placed along the site. And then we'll have a construction gate, and the entrance will have gravel. So as the work vehicles travel from our site back onto Westchester, they'll be going across a gravel path to rumble their tires and have sediment fall off the wheels. It's a standard Caltrans type detail that we've applied here. The contractor is also going to be required to control noise and vibration. The measures that he'll have to submit and our specifications require all this. It could be muffling of equipment, selecting quieter equipment, even erecting noise barriers if needed. And then the vibration will be monitored so not to exceed these specific threshold values. So here's an artist's rendering of what the final configuration will look like. And in the upper right-hand corner is that first photo I showed. And this is what it will look like at the end of the day. The trees in this image have grown about 4 to 6 years, and you can see the pathway here. And here's that cap beam. So the wall, the system is buried below there. Here's that upper hockey stick, if you will. So here's some more details. Now in this photo, we're looking kind of to the southwest towards the Valley Vista staging area. And so stacked on the left-hand side here are the types of reconstruction details we'll be applying. So down at the creek is going to be riprap, which is large sort of cobbly boulders held in place by live willow stakes. And then as you go up the slope from there, we're going to put this core matting, which is again sort of a coconut fiber mat with seeding underneath it, and the seed will eventually grow through this mat, but the point of the mat is to hold the seed in place on the relatively steep portion of the slope. And then as you get up into the flatter areas toward the top of the slope, we'll spray hydro seed, which when it's first put on, it looks like a green paper mache, those of you that have may seen it, but eventually the seeds sprout through and it just looks like a natural grassy hill. Here's another shot from the New Canyon Road Bridge looking back to the north. And as part of East Bay Regional's work, they'll put in a new gate for emergency vehicle access, similar to what was before. And so the project schedule will be 8 to 5, weekdays only. The first season is envisioned to start this summer, 2021, and go through the fall of 2021, and then they pull off site for the winter like we talked about. The second season will start in the spring of 2022 and go through fall of 2022 when the project will be complete. And then East Bay Regional comes in, finishes up the trail, and our East Bay Mud crews come in and restore the underground water main. And for more information, you can visit our website, and it is live now, and the link is shown there. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Great, thank you so much, Sam. So I'm going to be welcoming questions both via the chat function. Please make sure that you are sending your question to everyone in the chat function if you would like it read out loud. If you do have just a private question you would like answered, you can chat me or you can email me later. I'll also be looking for hands raised. If you're able to raise your hand, please do. Sometimes the hand raising doesn't quite work, so you might just use, I think there's different reactions, a little wave or something like that, and I'll try to call on you. So it looks like we have a couple of chat questions. So the first question is NEPA and CEQA environmental documents.
Yeah, and I'll defer to Sean Tadaro on this point because he's been handling a lot of the liaisons with the agencies. But we have an exception for this project, so we don't have a full EIR but the permits will be forthcoming, correct, Sean?
That's right. And so for the CEQA, the work was done under notice of exemption, but the work is permitted through the Corps of Engineers with the 404 permit, the State Water Resources Control Board, and with CDFW as well. So those permits we're in the process of getting and are forthcoming.
Thanks, Sean. So the status of the Canyon Road Bridge, I think that's probably a question for maybe for Sean Knapp with the town of Moraga.
Sure. Sean Knapp, Town of Moraga. We're about to start our second season, our second phase of construction with the Canyon Road Bridge. It's going to be starting in April here, so it's coming up rather quickly. We're in coordination with East Bay Mud. Their project is going to start a little later. They're out to bid currently. And so we'll get a little bit of a head start and allow us to do some of the work that's close to both sites and be able to get in there and hopefully clear out. And so East Bay Mud can in turn come in and work in a similar area. So we're doing a lot of coordination, and we're looking forward to finishing our complete bridge at the end of this year. And East Bay Mud will, of course, be continuing on a two-season project themselves into the next year and further.
Thanks, Sean. Will the end of Westchester be closed for the entire 2 years or only during construction?
So the end of Westchester will look similar to the closure as it is now. I believe we'll still have the site closed during the winter downtime because the contractor still has our contractor will still have custody of the site. So foot traffic will not go through the trail. It'll still sort of be redirected the way it is now.
Thank you. Will we be able to make a walking loop at Westchester and the existing trail like we can now? If not, can you leave a corridor for walkers?
Yeah, and we're looking into that. I may have Elizabeth say a few things in more detail, but we've discussed that internally and also with the parks folks, and that is what we envision.
Okay. I didn't hear Elizabeth chiming in, so I guess. Oh.
Yeah, I didn't have anything to add. You
Okay.
covered it, Sam. We're
Cool.
still exploring that option to see if we can make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is being done to address the east shore of Moraga Creek?
The East Shore. So yeah, it's part of this contract package. And so we envision that in the second season, when they come in to do the final landscaping, at that point, the Canyon Road Bridge project will be completed. And so it'll be easier to access from the eastern side there. And so we have, it was on one of my slides. I could go back to, if you like, it's shown, let's see, 18. There. So this, the eastern shore gets a similar reconstruction as what I showed with the riprap at the toe, the core matting, and then the hydro seeding plus some trees. To a lesser extent, but it's the same type of scenario.
Thank you. Can you explain why the underground water main can't be turned back on until after work is complete? Will it be fully inspected and repairs made? What restoration work can we expect on our driveways and street?
So I'll let Elizabeth chime in a little bit more about that, but it has to do with local slope stability versus global slope stability. So if you recall from that picture where we're coming in like a checkerboard to sort of stitch it together in stages, that's taking care of local instability, but I believe the global instability we would like to completely have nipped in the bud. But if Elizabeth wanted to say anything more.
Just building on your point, Sam, the water service was moved above ground so that safe water supply could be provided to the neighborhood. Out of an abundance of caution, we want to make sure the whole stabilization project is completed before introducing water into the underground main. Now, the concern isn't so much leakage from the main, but if something were to happen and cause a further movement of a fully charged main, we wouldn't want to have a big discharge of water that would cause a larger problem and impact the safety of the area. So that's the scenario we're avoiding. And again, emphasizing we want to make sure that it's safe for the neighborhood. And yes, before the main is put in service, it will be inspected and pressure tested, chlorinated, so that it's safe to introduce drinking water back into the main.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Amazing project, thank you. Have you considered evaluated whether using the urban creek for water transfer to the reservoir as is done now actually still makes sense?
And I can comment a little bit on that, Catherine. The use of creeks for water transfer is common statewide, if not nationally or internationally, and it's an effective way to transfer water, particularly between, a large reservoir source such as USL Reservoir. Alternatives would involve a large diameter pipeline that would be in city streets that would be at a high cost and very high impact to the community.
Thanks, Elizabeth. This is one that's directed just to me, but I think it's going to be one that other people are interested in too. Is the Park District committed to rebuilding the trail? I think we have Dan Cunning on. Dan, are you available to answer that question with the East Bay Regional Park District?
Sure. No, we're happy to engage with East Bay Mud, and we thank them for building the bench area so that we can construct a recreational trail in the footprint that was previously there in years past.
Thanks, Dan. Will you wet the ground to prevent dust?
Yes, so it's, I believe in our standard specifications, the contractor is going to be required to do dust control measures. Typically, they often spray with a water truck. Now, this is a fairly constricted site, so they may have some other measures to do that, but that's pretty common practice, so I'd imagine so.
Okay, great. Any cofferdam on Moraga Creek as part of this project?
No.
Okay. Will the extremely large current flow of the creek continue and adversely impact the new trail?
Maybe I can comment on that. As the community may be familiar, in addition to occasional water transfers by East Bay Mud, the creek does carry local runoff from the community and through storm drains in select locations into the creek. So there's no change to that current configuration. I did want to let the community know that as described, the creek is used to move water supply to Upper San Leandro Reservoir. And Catherine or Sam just had that slide up. We did begin releases into the creek this March on the 10th and anticipate those releases continuing for about 2 months and may be needed in the future. And the flow rate is fairly low at approximately 100 CFS.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Can you explain what the construction was at the transfer station on Country Club? It's a mystery. I don't know if we know that. Ron Haas, I believe, is the general manager of Moraga Country Club, and it's here. Ron, do you know about that?
Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, it says, can you explain what the construction was at the transfer station on Country Club? Oh, is Country Club a street?
I think it's School Street. I think there is, I think East Bay Mud has a construction next to the school, right, or next to the church right there, I think. There's a water station construction happening right there on School Street. I don't know what it is. I don't know, Sean, do you know maybe? Sean?
Sure.
No, it's, okay, you got it.
Sure. So if we're referring to School Street, at the end of School Street, there is a Central Contra Costa Sanitary District pump station. So that pump station runs along School Street, and they pump all the material, the sanitary material from the sewer system out of town down to Martinez. And so that's the beginning of the start. That station was rehabbed, reconstruction to handle the current needs of their infrastructure. So they're going to be finishing that up this year. It's completely separate from this project and not connected.
Thanks,
Sean.
Sean. So it's Central Sand, not East Bay Mud. Sorry.
Mystery solved, hopefully.
Yep.
Let's see, from Dave Trotter, I'd like to ask a live question of the EB Med project. Yes, thanks, Dave. Thanks for pinging me. I've been trying to keep an eye out for hands up. And so if I don't see it right away, you can also feel free to chat. Yes, please.
Thank you. I did not raise my hand. I just figured it'd be easier to tell you in words, but thank you for recognizing me. I'm the former mayor of the Moraga. I guess we have the current mayor here as well, Mike McClure. This is a long time in coming. I want to commend East Bay Mud, East Bay Parks for taking action at this time to restore that trail link and fix the problem below the homes on Augusta. I think that's all really, really great work. I do have a concern, however. It's pretty clear from the history here that the reason why that the toe of that slope failed below the homes on Augusta was because of the enormous outflows of water that was imported from the Sacramento River in the summer of 2015 from approximately May to October. And it was because of that out of season flow that ultimately it all failed in the following January and then in March of 2016. So when people have concerns about these excessive unnatural flows, I can understand why they would. My thinking is that what you're doing there below the homes on Augusta will likely fix the problem for them. However, I hope that the folks from East Bay Mud are aware that upstream from the curve in the creek there where the damage occurred, there also was significant earth movement back in the early part of 2016 and again in 2017 following the earth flow. And there are existing earth movements right below the trail as you walk down that way. There is basically an island containing one large oak tree that slid approximately 15 to 20 feet close to the center of the creek. And it's pretty clear that probably happened because of those same water flows. So I think the concern for the community here might be, what is East Bay Mud doing to assess the situation upstream from Augusta Drive and Westchester? And what assurances can we have that this same situation that occurred below Augusta might not occur further upstream and perhaps endanger and the homes, particularly along School Street on the East Bank because of all that. And in fact, I could see that large earth movement actually is at a pinch point in the creek. And if it were to move further, it might actually create a dam across the creek. Has East Bay Mud been looking at that? And I ask that particularly in the context of the fact that right now in the rainy season, and for the past 2 or 3 weeks, we walk there every day. It's coming out of that big 16-foot conduit, and it's more than 100 cubic feet per second. It's many, many times that. Is there any concern that the conditions that you created before might not migrate upstream and also pose a risk and a threat to other Moraga residents?
Maybe I can answer that, and thank you, Mr. Trotter, for your comments. I did want to mention, as I sort of alluded to before, the creek has many functions, including being a natural waterway and a waterway for the county flood control district to take flood water from the entire community and channel it into the creek. And so there are substantial flows from various sources that impact the creek. East Bay Mud's Moraga pumping plant releases are low relative to flood flows in the area. So that said, regarding the point of maybe trees or things in the creek, we do have, East Bay Mud has an active water and natural resources department with trained ranger naturalists that do patrol the area, and we do periodic maintenance. If neighbors do see concerns about downed trees, if they could please alert us so that we're aware of the situation, they can be addressed. In addition, we have protocols regarding inspection of the creek on a routine basis and also as we are making releases.
Could I just ask one follow-up question very quickly? Right now what's happening, is that a natural flow or is that pumping of water from the Sacramento River, not a natural stormwater runoff situation? I believe it's in pumping from the valley under your agreements with the water agencies up there.
The current flow, there might be some lingering storm water flow because it had been raining, but the flow right now is from our Moraga pumping plant. However, and maybe someone else on the call can chime in, that is our normal water source and not the Sacramento water.
Because the conditions right now are identical in terms of the volume of flow as to what was happening in the summer of 2015. It's the same volume, it's the same, looks like the same situation, not natural.
Yeah, the pumping, I know this because our contractor site walk on March 10th at 8 a.m. is when they turned the pumps on, because I was there with the folks.
So we have, I think, about 20 other questions that I would like to get to. Mr. Trotter, if it's okay, can we maybe follow up with you offline? And there might be additional questions that are similar to yours that we can maybe elaborate on. Did you get at least your,
I got my questions answered.
Okay.
We can follow up online, and I want to thank you for
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So is there any public input under NEPA or CEQA, and when? I think that's a Shantadaro question.
So yes, the notice of exemption was filed and posted publicly in the town of Moraga, and the comment period for that has closed. But this was a publicly posted notice of exemption for the project. I believe it's a 90-day post that went along with the project.
Okay, thank you. Who is adding funds to the funds from FEMA, and what amount of the fund, and what are the amount of the funds for the entire project?
I think I can comment on that. East Bay Med has budgeted money for the construction of the project. As Director Young had commented, we are a ratepayer funded agency. So that is the source of the funds. The project is currently out to bid, so we don't know the final amount, but we're anticipating bids on the 30th of this month, and we'll know exactly then.
Okay, great. And you referred to noise and vibration. How are the quote unquote soldiers constructed, by pile drivers or drills?
Oh, okay. Yeah, drills. So we often deal with that when we're looking at foundation elements too. Driven piles are much noisier because you're physically banging a piece of steel down into the ground. This is an augered drill, and then they lower the cage down and fill it with concrete. So it is a much quieter operation. It still has drill sounds, but it's not that percussive banging.
Okay, great. And for some reason, my chat box was telling me that I had 16 more, but now that seems to be the last one. So if I'm missing anybody, please let me know. And please keep the questions coming. We do have 17 more minutes. So if you do have any more questions or would like us to elaborate on anything, and I'll keep my eye out again for hands raised, but I haven't seen any yet. So, and if I do miss you, please just feel free to chat. And we can end early. Oh, I see Dennis Martell. I see waving his actual hand. Thank you, Mr. Martell. Let me unmute you here. Are you able to unmute? I think you might have to do it on your own. Yeah, there you go.
If I understand the presentation from the engineers correct, at the conclusion of season 1, I guess the southmost properties on Augusta 941, 945, 949 will be sandwiched with the lower row of stitch piers and then a higher row. So that land in the middle will be sandwiched. However, with only the lower row of stitch piers in place for the second winter, There's 3 residences, 931, 935, 939. Are the engineers fairly confident that that land with that lower stitch piers will be secure and will not be subject to additional sliding?
So yes, if you picture the rotational slide, hitting it at the toe is where you get the most bang for your buck in terms of the forces. So by getting that lower terrace in place at the maximum extent of the slide, that stabilizes it. Definitely under static loading, and then the additional components of the system would be there to mitigate seismic loading at a later event, but the gravity forces are arrested.
Thank you.
Okay, great. We have a question from Jill Ray with Candace Anderson's office. Is the house that is being removed going to be rebuilt?
We are working with the homeowners to make sure that the East Bay Mud project is coordinated with their work as well. And we will be meeting with the neighbor to discuss specific plans, but I don't have an answer to that question.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Hey, Catherine, this is Clifford.
Mm-hmm. And this is Clifford, our general manager with East Bay Med. Hi, Clifford.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, Mr. Trotter, you're still on the line. I just want to jump in. You had asked if that water right now is coming from the Sacramento River. Right now, that water that's being pumped in is not coming from Sacramento River. It's coming from our supply up in the Sierras from Pardee Reservoir. But I will kind of reiterate what Elizabeth said, that when it's raining, the flows from the runoff is orders of magnitude more than what we contribute into the creek.
Thanks, Clifford. So another question, I'd like to revisit the east shore of Moraga Creek. I saw the landscaping in the picture, but I'd like to know what's being done to prevent erosion of the east shore of the Moraga Creek. I think Sam.
So erosion, yeah, those boulders, the riprap at the toe is the main line of defense against erosion, because it starts with a cut, right? And so as the cut works its way back into the slope, eventually over time, that's where you get the local and then global landslide instability. But the riprap is like what you would normally see on a on a levee or a creek restoration job as well. So that's your first line of defense. And then as you creep up the slope at the higher flows, that's where you have the seeding, and then eventually trees also providing a more natural regime.
And you're talking the east shore, the east side, Sam?
Yeah, the east side, yeah,
okay.
Because you haven't had a global landslide there, so there isn't a need for the stitch pier and tiebacks because there's nothing to arrest. But what you can do is prevent a problem from even starting, and that's what the riprap does by strengthening the side of the creek.
And I just wanted to build on Sam's point. A large component of the project was restoration of the creek, and these repairs have been designed to provide strength in the area, but also a natural surface so that the creek is restored to its natural riparian beauty.
Great. Okay, I'm not seeing any chat questions. Richard Olson, yes. Are you able to unmute yourself? Let's see. You're on mute, sir. I want to.
Yep.
Okay, there you go.
Nope. I
okay.
think I'm unmuted.
There you go. You got it. Okay.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Yeah, I have a question as a Moraga Country Club resident, also a former commissioner of the Moraga Fire District and a former director of the Moraga Rindo Fire District. At the end of Westchester, reaching out to Canyon, was an EVA, emergency vehicle access, that is also available for evacuation of residents in case there was a major wildfire. Was an EVA, will that be restored, and will it be restored such that it can accommodate the heavy weight of fire trucks? Thank you.
So I have D. Rosario. Did you want to answer that question, or was that a separate question, Mr. Rosario?
He asked the same question I was going to ask.
Oh, okay. Great.
Perfect.
So I will comment, in designing the stitch pier walls, we envisioned full traffic loading. So they've been designed for that. And as Sam had explained, East Bay Mud is leaving an area for East Bay Regional Park Districts to reconstruct the trail in the same width that was there before to allow emergency access.
Great. Thank you. My question was also, will it be built to the former standard with heavy concrete and rebar so that it will support the weight of fire trucks?
And so I think that's the question for the park district.
Yeah, for the park district. Dan Cunning, do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. We've committed to restoring the trail. We know that it was an EVMA for that area. Because we have multiple years before we get to the phase in late, 2022, we will visit that and meet with the town on what's required for that area.
Thank you. It was actually a fire district requirement. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. I'm gonna take one last look here. Let's see. Any hands, any chats? Everybody's ready to start with the green beer, huh? We're gonna get the St. Patrick's Day going. Early, a day early. Oh yes, Mr. Martell.
The reason why this is going to take 2 seasons, is that a construction issue or more of a funding issue? I have had a discussion with one contractor, and maybe they didn't know the extent or the scope of the project, but they thought this could be accomplished in 1 season. So we're hearing now that this is going to take 2 years, which means yet another winter before this hillside is stabilized.
Maybe I can respond. It's not a funding issue. We had our designers perform a constructability review, and there was concerns that it might not be possible to construct the entire job in 1 season. And so we came up with a phasing plan that would be constructible, that would ensure safety during the entire construction. But as always happens, contractors have better ideas than we might have come up with. And so we will be receiving bids at the end of the month. And at that point, we'll know the exact details of the schedule. And I see Sam brought the figure back up, so maybe had more to add.
Yeah, that said it well. It's a function of how fast can these augers drill? And so there's a industry understood standard, and there's only so much production they can get. Realistically, we didn't want, and within the, the confines of working 8 to 5 and not on weekends, we feel that that's a realistic schedule estimate based on that constructability review.
Okay. Okay, another chat question. If the timeline changes, as Elizabeth implied it could, how will we be notified? Well, great question. So, and I'm going to take this one because I, for instance, with this meeting, we employed a lot of different outreach techniques to get the word out. The town graciously let us advertise this meeting in their newsletter. We used Nextdoor, our existing email list, etc. So, I think we'll probably be providing fairly regular updates as we move along with those same channels. Sean Knapp, I hope you will be okay with us providing some updates in your town newsletter, because I think that reaches a lot of people.
Yes, of course. So again, this is a complete partnering project. We have 3 agencies that are looking to complete this project. We all have certain components of the project, but we're all working together. And we have information that we pass back and forth as far as newsletters, outreach, and so it's very much a team effort, and we'll continue that. As Catherine's been able to do, she's been able to reach out to a large group. I see there's 49 participants on this call, very, very appreciative that you taking the time to come out. And if there's any way or a suggestion that you'd like us to reach out to us, please do. We do listen, and we will try those different avenues as we can.
Definitely, yeah. So I guess to answer that, yeah, if there is a change in schedule, you know, we'll be, it looks like we're getting some email addresses, so great. Yeah, we'll be including those. I'll put those on our email distribution list, and then we'll continue to use Nextdoor and the town's newsletter and our website as well. And then if needed, we can always look at having future community meetings if you're, you know, there's a need and a want on that. A question came in, is the Fish and Wildlife Department involved with this project? I think that's maybe Shantadaro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you.
yes.
Yeah, thank you both. Yes, the Fish and Wildlife is involved. So there's a CDFW permit that we're getting, and we're in communication with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So yes, we're enjoying working with them.
Great. Okay, just gonna I'm gonna look one more time, and it looks like I don't see any. If there's any last questions, oh, here we go. Okay, Bridgeway construction seems to have suspended construction this winter on the bridge. Sean Knapp, I think that's a question for the town.
Yeah, very, very similar to this project with East Bay Mud. The winter season is not the ideal season to be constructing, digging, and dealing with water and rain and such. And so most effective and for the contractor is to work when it's as dry as possible. They have the most production and get the most value for the amount of money they're spending during construction. So yes, the bridge project did have a planned winter shutdown, and we'll be starting up here in April with the project. It'll start off in a new, and you'll see the construction work and different things that go into prepping the site before the major construction starts happening. So looking forward to that. And it'll be the same thing with the East Bay Mud's project, as I understand, though. They potentially will also have a seasonal shutdown unless their contractor comes up with a creative way to construct this all in one season.
Thanks, Sean. Mona Favorite Hill, my boss. Hi, Mona. She just added in my contact information. And of course, you can always reach out to me. That information, as well as my phone number, is also available on the website, which I'll just type in again. It's ebmud.com, www.ebmud.com/Moraga Creek. And we'll be providing updates on there as well. But yeah, any regular, or we'll be providing regular updates as well. So, and Marguerite Young shared hers. Thank you, Ron Haas, for joining. Thank you, Dave Trotter. Okay. If you do have any questions that come to you in the middle of the night tonight, as you know, just feel free to shoot me an email and we'll get those answered. We really appreciate everybody joining tonight. We did have a really great turnout. I think there was, at one point, 54 participants. I'm also very impressed with everybody's ability to stay on mute the entire time. This is, I think, the first time I've ever seen that successfully happen. So thank you very much for that. Let's see, Sam, any last, or Elizabeth?
No, I mean, thank you. I'm
Okay.
excited to be part of this project. It's cool.
Likewise. Thank you, everyone.
Great. And Director Young?
Yeah, I just would like to say this has been a long time coming. I'm very happy to see it happening. Can't wait to take a stroll on the path when it's done, and appreciate everyone's patience, and it feels good to be in a collaborative project. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you to the town for being here tonight, for Supervisor Candace Anderson's office for being here tonight, and for, East Regional Park District and all of our EB Mud staff. So thank you guys, everyone, tonight. Have a great night. Again, this will be recording will be posted on the website within a few days. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.